evening, everyone. It's Mary Burns from Harrison's Hope, and it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce a friend and a fellow caregiver this evening as our special guest speaker. Welcome, Sylvia Gibbons. Sylvia, she probably won't say this, but I will. I know that she is a caregiver to three incredible young men. I know that her experience parenting and loving those three young men have given her over 25 years experience that we will all benefit from hearing tonight. I think what's really interesting about Sylvia, you're like me. You don't have a degree in social work, you're not a lawyer, you're not a doctor, um, but you came into this as a mom determined to figure out how best to help your sons have their best lives. And what I love about that is you've asked questions, you've looked for information, you've accepted help and assistance, and you've made mistakes, you've learned along the way, you've shared your learning, and you just keep showing up day after day after day. And not only do you do that for your family, but you do it for other families as well. So I am so excited that Sylvia is with us tonight. And this is going to be a pretty candid, casual presentation because I want to tease every little bit I can out of Sylvia in the time that we have with her. So I'm going to turn things over to her and say, welcome, welcome, welcome. Long overdue.
Well, thank you very much, Mary, and everybody that is here this evening. That was a beautiful introduction. I think I'd like to take you with me whenever I go anywhere because that
I'll be
was
your
wonderful.
Vanna.
Yeah, you could be my cheerleader. That was great. Thank you so much. I have so much respect and admiration for Mary as well. Everything that you've been able to accomplish in really a short period of time. I think back to, just like you said, my husband and I, we are adoptive parents. We adopted three, they were 3, 4, and 6 at the time. They're full siblings. When we adopted them, they hadn't been living together for over 2 years since the night of their apprehension. And, it is just going to be 27 years coming up next month when we first met them. And I think back to that time where, there wasn't the pride training that's available now
Yes.
for adopted families. It was, they did an information session. I think there was 6 or 7 sessions. And I remember like nobody was really talking about trauma. Nobody was talking about loss. It really was the thought, put them in a good home, give them love. Kids are resilient. They'll be fine. And I'm here to say they've had a good home. They've had love, but things weren't always fine. And just like you said, really struggled to try to figure out my kids and how best to help them. And
Yep.
sometimes I was doing some really good stuff and sometimes we weren't. And it was, I think when you start this journey and your family and friends are there and they're supporting you and they're like 100% behind you. And then once the kids are placed with you and you start seeing behaviors and they start noticing things and you start sharing things, people really started judging us as
Mm.
like parents. And then people started judging my kids. And it was so isolating. And it
Oh,
was, you felt like a failure every day, and then whenever you said something, people would say, well, this is what you asked for. And it was like, okay, yes, I asked for a family, but I did not ask for this, right?
yeah.
And, some support. And I really couldn't believe that there was actually no support. There was nothing for families. And really what helped us so much is we had a really great worker who
Thank goodness.
was, yeah, and she was new to adoption, which was great because she had come from the other side protection. And so she had a lot of skill. But I think I think for her, she was so invested in our kids and especially our oldest son, just because of everything that he had gone through. And we latched onto her where a lot of people, they want the agency gone out of the way. We
Yes.
wanted her because she was the only one that really could normalize things for me. And she was the only one like that was cheering us on and, and helping us to understand and the connection she had with our kids, especially my older son, because at the time when he came to us, he didn't want a mom and dad. He was
Okay.
terrified of having a mom and dad because of everything he had gone through.
Mm,
And so this was one adult in his life that he trusted, that knew him before, during, and after. So we saw the benefit of her continuing to be in his life. And I can tell you, 27 years later, she's long retired, but
yes.
we're in touch all the time. Next month we have my middle son just got married, so we're having a party here. She's coming to that. Like we're just
Yes.
so fortunate. That was the person. And I remember I kept saying to her, like, there has to be support groups. There has to be support groups. And she finally said to me, well, why don't you start one? And so said,
Little did
okay,
she know what she was starting with
yeah,
you.
exactly, right. And so okay, so she got a space at our CAS office, and it was my husband and I joke all the time, it was just him and I, and it was almost like date night, like once a month at the CAS, right? Which a lot of fun. And then he stopped coming, right? And then it was just me, and for a long time. And I remember one night thinking, okay, there's nobody's coming. It's just me. It's everybody else can parent fine. It's
No.
just me. And I was going to leave. The weather had turned really bad, and there was a knock at the door at the CAS, and this lady had driven an hour in a snowstorm, because there had been an investigation into her home, and her daughter was taken out of the home. And I didn't know her, she didn't know me. And the worker, thankfully, somehow knew about the group I had because nobody else knew because nobody was coming, and told her. And she drove up an hour in the snowstorm. And for me, that just lit my fire. It's just like,
Yep.
okay, first of all, I was surprised. I was very happy there were other people like me out there.
Yep.
And thinking that could have been me. Like that
Yep.
really could have been our situation as well. So from that point, I worked hard. I was getting this group off the ground. I knew there was people out there. And this lady continues to be in touch with me from time to time. Her daughter's all grown and has moved away, and they work things out. But one of the things that was very clear to me is exactly what you have behind your head there, Mary, about the
The
journey and
slogan.
being with people who get it. You can't do this on your own. And I tell people, like, being a parent, any type of parent nowadays, is really hard. But when you throw on being a parent to somebody who has experienced loss and trauma, it is really doubly hard. And you need your people to be there to help support you. And so
Definitely.
my group really grew. Like now I have over 200 people on our email distribution list. People can write in. Any information I get, anything I can share with people. I've had people that have been there since the beginning with me, which is probably about close to 20 years now that I've had the group going. COVID threw a big wrench in our regular meetings, but our CAS was so supportive. They were providing snacks. I had a pass key. I could come and go in the building. And I think because of them being so supportive, they really saw that when people could come and talk to other people who are, as I say, living the dream, what they were getting less calls on their end, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of their workers weren't adoptive parents. They knew this stuff and they got it, but they weren't living it every day, right? And so when you can come to a group and you can share what's happening in your life, in your home, first of all, you're going to have other people that are living the same way, or you'll have some people say, oh, okay, we're not that bad. Ours isn't as bad. But nobody is judging. They're
No.
actually validating the healing work you're doing, and they're supporting you. And best of all is they're not judging your kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
And you don't have to explain.
no, you
You
don't
do.
have to. No.
They just
And it's
get it.
and you can come and you can share like a typical day and you can laugh about it.
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
really like feel good and you can go and okay, like you're re-energized.
Yeah.
And so at the same time my group was going, my worker had reached out and said, like, could you talk to this family? Like, they're really struggling. And I'm like, okay, like, what am I going to talk to them about? Well, she said, kind of like you see light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm like, I do? Like, like I didn't always think I was, right? I was just trying to get my kids, right? And when I heard about disruptions happening, um, for me, that still is one of the hardest things that I hear because I truly believe that our kids pay the price their whole life for things they've had no control over.
Yeah.
And yet they're the ones who bear the brunt of it. I know somebody who once said, like, everybody told me it wasn't my fault, but I was the one that moved 9 times, right? So how can it not be my fault? And that goes to the core, right, of somebody who they
Absolutely.
are. So
It
yeah,
does.
so I started then doing some training for Pride, and I can remember our at the AC, not the ACO, sorry, at my CAS, I was doing Pride training as a parent there, and I remember one night a guest speaker came in, and she talked about FASD, and I had never heard about this before, and I was so like, oh my God, that's my son, that's my son, and I came home and I was looking at my husband. I said, we got to, like, here, I brought home some information. And we both said, oh my God, that's him. That's him. And I needed to learn more and know more about it. And when then we found out we had, this is all happening very quickly. Then we found out that, well, we knew that my sons had siblings that were born after them and went into care. And we met with two of those adoptive parents and their kids had been diagnosed with FASD.
Okay.
And so we're like, okay, like for sure we
Mm.
see it in the son, for sure. And so started learning more. And then when we gathered the information, then we went to talk to him about it. Because I know if we're struggling, he's struggling
He's
as well,
struggling.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. He doesn't like what's happening, right? And so when we went to tell him, like, none of this is your fault, it's your brain, just how you learn.
Exactly.
He 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 didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
He just saw it as another label,
Yes.
another something else is wrong with me, no matter how we tried to frame it and do the education with him. So we have always parented him with the mindset of him having FASD, which
So
once
you've
we
respected his choice.
we have to. I couldn't force him to do anything that he's not ready for, right? And even
Exactly.
today, I mean, he's going to be 32 next month. There's still, or sorry, 33 next month. Um, there's just another label, and it
Yeah,
for us, that's okay, right? Like, I mean,
absolutely.
and back then too, there weren't really any services that that were going to help us. It was just us
Yep.
understanding him better, right? Because there were so many things that happened. It was like, okay, how does he not get this, right? How
Yeah.
does he not understand, right? Why is this still happening? Why are the confabulations, why are they, right? And then tying it into some of the things that I have learned through the Adoption Council of Ontario has just really helped me to be the parent he needs. Because the one thing I realized is my kids aren't going to change. It's me that's going to do the changing.
That's right.
Right. And once I could let go of some of my stuff, some of my expectations, boy, did I ever see the beauty in my kids and really see them succeed. So I'm
And and
happy to
and you
say
don't want them to change.
I don't know. I don't. There were sometimes I
Exactly.
would have liked some changes, like maybe some of the verbal abuse or some of the stuff I was getting. But there
But
was,
that's
for
not
God,
who they are as a person, right?
no, no.
But who they
I
are
got,
as
I
people.
understood.
Oh,
Yeah,
right?
I understood.
I
So
love
I
it.
was lucky in the work that I started doing with my support group. The manager of the adoption department at my CAS put me in touch with somebody who worked at the ACO and the Adoption Council of Ontario. And they were starting to look at how they can get support groups going across the province to be able to support families. And I remember saying, oh, can you list my group on your registry? And what? There's no registry? Like, so what they started to do, I started doing volunteer work for them, and they were a great support because here again, I met people who got it. Met people who were really trying to help, who weren't judging, right? And so very fortunate to the caring people that I met. And then knowing a little bit about the ACO, I'll use the acronym ACO because it's
Yes.
easier than Adoption Council of Ontario. And Pat Convery, who was the executive director at that time, was a real visionary and what she wanted to see for adoptive families and the support. But before Pat, there was another Pat, and it started, the ACO was established in 1987. It was a small group of parents who met as a support group in their kitchen. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew to where it is today, where we offer support for anybody in the adoption permanency galaxy, whether you're kinship, whether you're the foster parent, whether you're the adoptee, whether you're the adoptive parent or the caregiver or the birth family, and the professionals as well. Because what the ACO's vision has always been is in the middle, we have children and families, and we have to have all these supports around us. So we do a lot of education as well, and try to do, education for government, police, the school. And I don't know about some of you parents who have the school system. That for me was quite challenging. I kissed the ground when my youngest son graduated from high school, that I didn't have to go back there. But many times I honestly felt like there was a button at the door. She's here, she's here, she's here again. Because I had to advocate for them and on their behalf, and not so much as like treat him specially, but that he deserves an education like everybody else. How are you going to help me, and how do I help you to get him there? Because school cannot be like going to trauma, entering trauma every day. So I actually, when my kids were younger, I took them out of school for 2 years and homeschooled them for a little bit. And remembering that my kids hadn't been together for 2 years. So it was like 5 people together. Yeah. And my youngest had absolutely no memories of his brothers, where my other two did. My 4 and 6-year-old did. And so it was a real, like, trying to bring 5 people together. So after about a year and a half of them, being in school, and my oldest son was in trouble all the time. He was at the office all the time. You go to meet the teacher night, on the board is a sheet of paper with all the kids, the behavior chart. Which kid do you think has all the checks? My kid. I hear parents telling their kid, you're not playing with this boy, right? My middle son was just leaving. He was leaving school. They couldn't find him. He's hiding in boiler rooms there. His class was very noisy. And my youngest son had a teacher who didn't get any of this attachment stuff, and that, he had just come to us a year before. So when he went to school, he started leaving school. He was scared to go. He was crying to go to school. And when I tried to talk to the teacher about he's thinking I'm not going to be there at the end of the day, she just said to me, well, I'm the teacher and he has to get used to it. So it was a small school, so we didn't have a whole lot of choice for teachers. Yes. So we ended up being able to take him home, and I had full support of the school, and we homeschooled for about 2 years, which I'll say were like the best years of my life. And it was really interesting how my kids could switch from me as mom and me as teacher.
Yes, I've heard that.
We had the basics.
Our kids make really good.
They're amazing.
Definitions of mom and teacher are at completely different times. That's amazing.
We were very routine. So we started early in the morning, and, we'd go down to the basement. That's where we had it set up as a class. We had guest speakers come in. Our worker came, the principal from our school came in and did a reading session. And I remember like the one year when it was summer and we had a break. And when they came back, they all put up their hand to tell me what they had done on the summer holidays. I was like, okay, I was there, right? But it was so interesting that they could switch over. And I went back to, we were in the Catholic system, and now I was going to the public system that was just down the road because I wanted my kids to have like a fresh start and not
Sure.
be with those same kids. And so I remember going to the school and the principal saying, like, because I said I wanted to ease them slowly into
Of
school. And
course.
she's like, I don't think we can do that. Like, they have to come full time or not. And I said, okay, that's fine. And so I took my oldest son, and him and I went to meet with our MPP and talked about their history and the school system. And he was like, oh my God, like, there's money for special ed. These kids deserve to have special ed. No, no. And then the next day I got a call from the principal saying, congratulations, we're able to accommodate you, right? So I just had them going for an hour, and I would walk them to school, and I would sit at the front lobby there. And I remember teachers and the principal saying, oh, go get a coffee. This is your break. And I'm like, nope,
Nope.
my kids need to know I'm here. If they get scared or worried, because we're still building this attachment as
Exactly.
well.
Exactly.
So no, I'm staying here. And I by the end of the school year, they were in school full time, and I was
That's
able to
awesome.
work with the teachers. I then started volunteering at the school, so the kids knew where I was. And for adoptive parents as well, it was very validating for the kids to hear other people say, "Oh, I'm reading with your mom," or "Your mom helps me read," or "Your mom's in the library." So the kids actually thought, "Oh, wow, like she's not that bad," right? Like other
Exactly.
kids like her. So
They
it worked
normalized you.
out. Once you get to high school, not so cool, but
So,
So I guess the ACO then, at the same time as I was doing this, they were looking to start a training, and they had done a survey with adoptive families asking them what they needed. And the overall response, and maybe many adoptive families on here can relate, the overwhelming response was that we needed those professionals that were working with us to understand us.
yeah.
And so they got a grant through Trillium, and they went looking, and they bought this curriculum in California. And it was for the adoption competent training. So it was actually to train mental health professionals
Mm,
and therapists and workers, like CAS workers, social workers, in trauma and loss. And when they were looking, they actually found this curriculum for parents, Pathways to Permanency, parenting children who have experienced trauma and loss. And so they didn't have enough money to buy that. And we had a private donor that actually bought that
wow.
for us. Yep. And in the meantime, they hired, I think initially there was 22 of us trainers, and they trained us in this pathways material and in the adoption competency training. So the training for professionals we still offer. The ministry would not cover those costs, so there is a fee for that. But the ministry then in September of 2015 said that they would pay for families to take this training. So this
Amazing.
is fully funded by the ministry. They had trained 22 of us. We were all set, ready to go. We just had nowhere to go. The ministry made this announcement, and in January of 2016, we started rolling out the pathways. And I was one of the trainers, but I was also, when we bought the curriculum, there was just 7 sessions. We added an 8th session, and that was all about building a community support network. And so I went to every one of those session 8s all across this province, from Sioux Lookout to Cornwall to Windsor. Everywhere I went into the session 8, and really trying to replicate the model that I had built of a support group and build it across the province. And I can tell you that when I was first taking this training and being trained, I was in a room with pretty well everyone there is a therapist. And so I'm in a room with these people who finally get me, right? It's like, where have they been? Because we've tried therapy, we've gone to therapy. And what I've learned through this is, especially for my older son, we'd always give him credit for going. And he'd go, and for a lot of our kids, they can't do the talk therapy.
Exactly.
Right. And so he's going feeling even more of a failure. And so he starts, telling stories, or it's like, it's all about our relationship. Yeah, I'm getting along. Like one time he went into a therapist and he came out 5 minutes later and he's like, oh yeah, everything's great. And I'm like, did you at the
Pardon?
part where you got caught shoplifting this week? Oh, it never came up, right? Of course it wouldn't come up, right? And we couldn't be part of it. That was the other thing.
Yes.
It was him. They weren't doing the family stuff. And so one of the things that I really stress about the learning that I've done through the pathways is that when I'm working with a professional, it needs to be somebody who has trained in like the attachment issues, the trauma, the loss, to understand fully what
Yes.
that is. Because an adoption competent therapist understands that the healing takes place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in my home, not once or twice, once every 2 weeks in their office for an hour.
For an hour.
We don't want our
Exactly.
kids attaching to the therapist, right? We want somebody to help build our attachment. And so I honestly can say that we have caused more damage to my son by having him go to those therapists who didn't get it. We didn't know either as well, too, right? So
No, Sylvia, we do better when we know better.
100%, right? So that's some of the stuff I had to let go, like feeling how yeah. And then again, once now I know all these people, then it was like he didn't trust it anymore. He had tried so many times before. And I get it. When your internal working model tells you that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not lovable, to put yourself out there and try
Why
again
would you
is
do it
just
again?
was just so hard. So yeah, so then we start. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the pathways, because the pathways really is built on the 7 core issues of adoption. And loss. We see at the center, it's loss is there. And that's the one thing that unites all of us together is kids and children and youth have had loss. We've had loss, which is interesting because sometimes adoptive parents don't think that they have had loss, right? It's like, yeah, you're the loss of genetics, the loss of the birth history, right? Like, I mean, my kids came at 3, 4, and 6. They had a whole life before me, right? Even if you adopt a child at birth, there's loss there, right? You didn't birth that child, right?
Exactly.
And so it's the one thing that keeps us together. And then we look at rejection, right? We look at guilt and shame. We look at grief. We look at identity, intimacy, and mastery and control. And what I really loved about the training and the core issues is it's not pertaining just to the child. It's to us and it's to birth family. And through doing that training, I actually had a better understanding of my birth parents, like
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, because when you think, and when, like in our case, it was one of the worst cases that our CS has had. And how do you find something positive in that? But then I could try to understand through their lens why maybe they were the way they were and looking back at their life. And the greatest thing has been my own, how I am in those core issues. So whenever there was a behavior or something, I right away went to that chart and said, where am I in this, right? And that's where I talked about my own grief. It was often my own grief or my own shame that, I had to, this is where I am. I got to get centered in there. Then I can look at where my child is in there and how do I help them? And so the pathways, and some of you on here may have taken that. And if you have and you want to say any comments, please
let us know.
Feel free.
Tell us what you liked about it, what worked, what resonated.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I'm a trainer of it. It did take me a long time to still understand the core issues because, you just don't train it and then, take it once. I've had to do more work into it. But some of the things like I said, there's the 8 sessions. The first session is parenting children with extra needs. Session 2 is lifelong issues in permanence. And we really look at ways that we can decrease loss for kids and increase pleasure, right? So when kids come to us, we do a really great activity, this kinship circle, and we look at everybody in our own lives who's important to us. And then we start crossing people off to your left with just one person in there. And it's amazing when you do that activity, the emotions that come up for people doing it. And you're a participant in this activity. And this is kids' real lives, right? Where they've
Yes.
just, you know, lost. So we try to talk to parents about openness, and we try to talk about where relationships are safe, right? Um,
Yes.
to keep them, to build them for our kids, right? Because it's just gonna help them better, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
We look at childhood development, and then we look at how loss and trauma impacts that childhood development. So what typical development looks like, and then when you put loss and trauma, yeah, our kids will grow, and they'll continue to grow, but because they've missed some steps, that when they get into that permanence home, they can actually go back and do some of that healing, get those steps, right? So we truly believe that the healing starts when a child is placed in the permanent home, or with the permanent connection, right?
Yeah.
Because, that's why you can have a 15-year-old one day, and one day you can have a 2-year-old, right? Because they have to do those temper tests. Like I know my son in grade 6, all of a sudden he just started cutting his hair. And the teacher went ballistic. You got to get him into counseling. There's something wrong with him. And okay, so we went and saw somebody who had some understanding, and we did an assessment. And she said, you know what? He missed doing all that stuff as a kid. As a
Exactly.
3-year-old, you would see kids doing stuff like that, or with their dolls or whatever, right? He is now safe enough that he can go back and do that. And so for me, it was like, oh, great. Like,
Okay.
actually, regression is good, right? Like, because
Exactly.
we
It's
can
healing.
reparent that. We can reparent that little boy that missed those steps, right?
Exactly.
Again, not everybody understands that, but it was like, for me, it was like, oh, okay, he's feeling safe enough to try these things. So we look at creating positive attachments. We actually do that over 2 sessions, and we really look at the brain science
Okay.
behind that. We do a lot of Bruce Perry's work,
Yes.
and Siegel, but we really look at um, the brain history, and how trauma and loss impacts that. And then we do parenting the child who experienced abuse and neglect. And we also then session 7 is parenting the child who with alcohol and drug exposure. And we spend a whole session talking about that. And it's amazing how many parents will take that training and think, oh no, not my
Yes. No, my
child.
kid.
Yeah. And then afterwards, oh, maybe that is my child, right? And the techniques you learn, right, will only help you, even if your child doesn't have the
Exactly.
FASD. They're great techniques to use. And so to be this healing parent, what we talk about is having parents really understand to decode the behavior. So what they're seeing from their child, not
Yes.
to take it personally, like the child's doing this to upset you, but our kids don't often have the words to tell us, right? So it's going to come out in behavior. So we
It's
got to,
communication.
yes, that's the only way they know how to do it, right? So we kind of got to dig deeper and try and figure out, use the tools. Is it something to do with the core issues? Is it
Yeah.
reflective of an earlier stage, right? And so we talk to the parents about parenting to stage, not age. We talk about, building connections before correcting, because you can't go in and correct a behavior if there's no
Nope.
value in it. They don't got any skin in the game, right? So
Sylvia, they tell me that I should put that on a t-shirt, and I think we should.
yeah, I 100% agree. Connection before correction, and then helping kids to heal from trauma.
Yeah,
And it sounds pretty basic, but it's pretty hard.
it
And
is.
I can tell you, the parents that have taken the training, the aha moments, I remember, because I did session 8, like, and people,
Many times.
yeah, a lot. And we would talk about, what are they taking away? And I remember one person saying to me, for the first time, when I'm in a room telling my story, people are nodding their heads instead of shaking. And
Exactly.
that is so powerful.
Isn't it?
That keeps you going, right? And that was one of the best comments I had heard. But the other things were like, I found a community. I found people who get it, right? And so, as I said, this training is free. It's open to anybody. That the ministry is paying for anybody who has adopted through a CAS.
To take.
Um, Unfortunately, they won't let private or international parents take it. We do offer it for private and international. There is a fee, but if the money isn't there, um, have a conversation with us.
Okay.
There's a chat from Evelyn, who I know very well.
Yes. So I want to read this because
Go ahead.
it really says it like it is.
Go
It
ahead.
says, Sylvia, the program was a game changer for me and my buddy boy. I've completed it twice, not once, twice. And I think, that's something I want to stress with folks tonight is when we learn something, repeating it for ourselves, not just for our kiddos, benefits us all as
Yeah.
a family. Every single time I hear the same presentation, I get more information each and every time. And it solidifies the things that are really, really important, and validates when we're getting it right.
Yeah. 100%. And we tell people we don't openly advertise that to the ministry, but
Yes,
we tell people you've taken it. Sometimes people are just maybe newly placed, and so
yes,
they're coming to it with like these urgent things that they're seeing in their home.
yes,
So come back when things have settled down a bit, right? And take it again. Or your child is in a different developmental stage. Maybe they were 5 and now they're in the teens, which is a
exactly.
whole other area of fun.
Whole different container of gummy worms.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. I will say that, though. I mean, it dims, it gets brighter at some points, but there is. But I think for me, I had been parenting 15 years before I found the pathways, and it was a game changer. It like the light bulbs that went off for me. I think I really got my kids. It was just amazing.
So there's an interesting question. Sylvia, can you, oops, hang on. Oop. Sylvia, can you tell me whether I could take it as a customary
So
caregiver? My worker
so
had suggested it, but we weren't adoptive kin, but customary.
So we have right now we have because we used to take kin in there, and there's some kids
Yes,
that they were able to take it, and so through interwoven connections, if you
wonderful.
register with them, you can take it. You can take it with the kin.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
So we've had feedback here that this is one of the many tools that have made a huge difference. Um, and Stacy, who is from the US, said, I wish I could find support like this in the USA. It's so hard to get in the United States when you try to explain your child's behaviors. So the good news is, Stacy, there are a lot of commonalities in pathways to permanency and how we support our families at Harrison's Hope. It's a very symbiotic relationship. And I think, Stacy, connect with me because I will help you find connections in the US that will build your circle, will build your village.
yeah.
We also have someone, Karina from BC, said that she'd never heard of this training, wondering how I can possibly go about accessing it in BC. Um, we have not adopted our 23-year-old FASD son, but I've been his foster mom for the past 21 years.
Well, I have something else I could talk to her
Awesome.
about. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to say to Stacy as well too, and
Yes,
the Pathways to Permanency is actually an American curriculum that we got from the Kinship Center in California.
California.
I'm happy to share with you some of the resources that I have. I know creating a family. There's lots of webinars that I watch that are free. There is more happening. I mean, Family Rising.
Yes, that's
They
who
have
I was going to put her in touch with.
yeah, but there's some like online things that I'm happy to share with you, Mary, that you
Awesome.
can forward to Stacy as well too.
I will gladly do that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was gonna say, so I do work for the Adoption Council of Ontario part-time, and I also work for another organization called Never Too Late.
Tell us
And
about Never Too Late.
it is Never Too Late is an amazing organization where we work with, we call them humans, and we call our young people lived experts. And you being the foster parent who is like the human, and the reason why we use the terminology is when Never Too Late was starting, actually met with lived experts because they drive all the work that we do, and they didn't necessarily want a mom or a dad or caregiver. They wanted somebody who was going to be in their life that wasn't getting paid to be in their life. And so part of my role there at Never Too Late is I work with the humans in supporting them through education, through one-on-one, through some of the groups we have, in understanding trauma and loss and how that might impact your lived expert. And then we have a lived expert coordinator who actually works. Wendy, thank you for putting that in the chat.
Yep, perfect.
Tonight, she is one of our lived experts and who also works at Never Too Late, but who works with our lived experts. The beautiful thing about Never Too Late is because we are not funded by ministry dollars, we can work across Canada. So I'm actually supporting somebody who lives in Eastern Canada, and their lived expert who they did adopt lives in BC. And so we do some things virtually. Yes, some things we do in person in Toronto. So you may not be able to come into that, but we have a ton of support. And Never Too Late, we work with anybody who has had a young person come into their life at 15, or we'll go as low as 15, but typically around 16, or about to leave care without having any kind of supports. And so it's a free service that we provide. We also do training for service providers as well too. We're very small, very passionate. The ACO too was, we're not that big, but we're all very passionate people. But NTL we're really small, but we really work to, and I think we're not a service provider. We're more about helping to keep these connections and the relationship long term. How do they survive forever? And so by giving support to our humans and having a support for our lived experts and doing things together, meetups, whether they're virtually or not, and having the people that are involved with us understanding, but giving our lived experts actually the driver's seat. They totally have a voice. We do education sessions monthly. So Wendy put the website there. We have one coming up in June that Wendy is actually leading, which, they've been really great. We do some about FASD, but, just some too about boundaries, how to work with boundaries, how to take care of yourself when you feel like maybe you're being depleted. Wendy did one on harm reduction. I point to Wendy because Wendy has taught me so much about being a human and being a parent, and what I need to do again for my kids, and just seeing it through the lived expert's eyes. I tell people, any opportunity you have to hear lived experts, listen. Close this and listen, because you will learn so much. And so, yeah, Never Too Late. Happy to talk to anybody about that is looking for extra help, or even how to go about it if they were interested in doing that. So we do also on our website, there's an orientation one, and it's called The Importance of Permanence. If you're interested in continuing, we do have an orientation 2 that's coming up in September. And then we have our 8-week training for humans. And that training will be led by a lived expert. And you will hear the voices of lived experts coming through in that training. So,
and it is such a refreshing change from everything else that's out there. I love the fact that your reach is across Canada from coast to coast. That's one of the reasons why we took the approach of a charity, because we didn't want to turn anybody away. We didn't want to be restricted. And it just makes sense. We're all in this together. So, Karina, thank you for asking your question. It was a perfect segue.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was
Right?
great. Because oftentimes we do have those foster parents that are going to be the human, right? That are the human for the lived expert. And so
Exactly.
but what we've seen too is like, here in Ontario, and I think that could be across Canada, we see kids coming back into care in their teens. And
Yes.
so, yeah, offering support for those families. And then we also see, and I have to admit, me as an adoptive parent, I never really thought about what about those kids who don't get homes, right? And most people don't. And again, a lot of people, like, they didn't understand me with 3, 4 to 6 year old. They certainly wouldn't understand me being a human to a 26-year-old who has her life together. So what does she need? And I say all the time, I'm fortunate I still have my mom alive at, she's 91. But if I needed something, she'd be right there to support
You're
me.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, think about some of the kids that are leaving care that didn't get the permanence. They're not
They need
necessarily
humans.
looking for, like, to move in with you.
No,
They're looking for people to be there to call when the good stuff
their
happens. Call
connection,
when
their
the good stuff,
community.
right? Yeah, like, you got a doctor's appointment, you got to go, taxes, you need help with something. Like, you think of all the things that maybe your kids count on you for, or you counted on your parents for. Um, our lived experts need people to count on as well too, and so that's what we really try to do.
Awesome. So Stacy definitely said, yes, please, yes, please. So we will take care of that
Perfect.
for her. Wendy said that you've learned from one another.
No, she's
Karina was kind enough to say thank you for joining this evening. It's been a godsend for me. It helps so much hearing what's been said, as I know you get it based on what's been shared. And yes, Karina, it can be lonely and exhausting, but you are not alone anymore. Sylvia is here and her teams, and I am here on behalf of Harrison's Hope. You have three pretty powerful organizations that want to help.
and want to work
Absolutely.
together as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. That was going to be my next piece was let's talk a little bit, Sylvia, about some of the really cool projects your teams are currently working on and how people can become a part of it.
Yeah, so I will tell you through the Adoption Council of Ontario, when we were doing pathways, they were all in person. We never wanted
Yes.
to go online. They were all in person, and we offered free childcare for parents for kids 3 and up. So we didn't want a barrier for anybody coming, and we would start off the session with a meal, usually like pizza. We ordered pizza or
Yep.
whatever, because we really wanted to start building the community right from day one. And so what we started noticing is, like, something was happening in that childcare, right? Kids were actually connecting. And it wasn't like babysitting, because we made
No,
sure that the people that were with our kids understood our kids. And we were programming. So whether they were doing arts or crafts or games or whatever, it wasn't just sitting
it
there,
was
and
structured.
it was very structured. And so when COVID came, we were forced to go online. And if you remember to the beginning, where everybody was at home, parents and kids, we decided that, you know what, we needed to do something to give parents a break. So we started these online kids sessions, and we run 3 groups. So we run a group for kids 5 to 10, a group for 11 to 15, and a group for 16 and plus. The 5 to 10, the 11 to 15, we meet once a month. And that is very structured. There's usually a snack making activity. There's games, there's arts and crafts. There's always the introduction that they do. We don't typically talk adoption. However, if kids want to talk adoption, they can. It's a safe space. It's really to let these kids know that they're not the only adoptee in the world, that there are many others, and some may live close. So we've seen some connections happen even virtually. And they may be able to come and see, other kids that kind of look like them, or kids that I remember one kid coming and telling us all about their FASD. bringing us a picture of her birth mom, showing us the necklace that her birth mom gave, and nobody batted an eye. In one of those sessions, it was actually kind of cute because it was almost like a contest to see who had the most siblings, right? That weren't living with them, right? Like, oh, I have 5 brothers and sisters. Oh, I have 6. Oh, I have 10, right? It was like, yeah, where else could you come and say that and nobody say, what? You have all, no. So it's just a way for them to start building on their social skills, because often our kids really haven't had the opportunity to do that. We have, knock on wood, we have never had an issue. Kids come and some kids really like it, some don't. It's a drop-in, so you come whenever you want. We have our 16 plus group that it's very informal. And there they do talk more about adoption. I remember one of the kids one time saying, okay, this is the place to ask it. What do I say to my birth mom when she says, I love you? And all I want to say is, yeah, you don't even know me. Which opened up this great discussion about birth moms and their relationships and how they manage them. Who better to talk about it than those ones that are living it, right?
Absolutely.
And that one we meet twice a month. And I will say the time is from 8 till 9, but it usually goes till 10 o'clock at night. And I'm on all those sessions.
Yeah.
The kids ones, I come on and welcome everybody, and I just shut off my screen and watch. We have 2 childcare leaders who do it.
Yeah.
And if there's anything, I pop in. I usually pop in anyways because they're having fun and I want to be a part of it.
Well, you don't want to miss out.
No, I want to have fun too. The youth one is, I'm very involved in that. I mean, some of them were texting and everything else. They're getting some support. But we talk about everything in that group. We met last week. We're talking about tattoos. And I'm the old lady with like no tattoos. And they're like, get with the times. You got to get my name. And, so it's a lot of fun. We do some games and everything, but it can get heavy.
Yes.
Last time was struggling about some relationship with her peers, and it's interesting because the core issues come up. So I'm able to say that's your rejection, right? And they all talk about that, right? But we have had some great opportunities that we've been given some grant money. And they have totally done this. So the first grant that they received, they did a day at the Maple Syrup Festival and a day at the Village, which used to be Black Creek.
Yes.
And they booked it and invited adoptive families to come. And they just asked for donations to the local food bank. So they collected all this food. We dropped it off. The families came. They did one with our CAS where they put welcome packages together for newly placed adoptive families. They put teddy bears in there, picture frame. They put games in there. They wrote out on a sheet of paper tips for parents, and then on the other side, tips for the adoptee. And they did all this work themselves. And then we got another grant. We got 2 grants last year. No, 1 grant last year. And one of them, and very little support from me. Just, Dawn and I just kind of helping them out, being there, doing kind of the administrative stuff for them. But I meet with them regularly. And they did a documentary called Voices of Change, the adoptive narrative. And they went around and they interviewed some people in person and some people they did over Zoom. And we premiered it in Toronto. And it was like a huge success. So it now sits on our learning management system. There is a fee for people to watch it. It's $25. All those funds go directly to the youth who are now planning a retreat where we are going to do some of that introduction to the core issues for them. We do all this studying, and yet we don't tell them, hey, we did once a gentle introduction at a retreat. And it was amazing for them to realize that everyone in that room has had significant loss. Everybody goes through rejection, and they're like, that's what I feel. I live in rejection every day. So once you can name those things, right, it just, again, normalizes. That's perfectly normal what you're feeling, right? And so they're hoping to do an event like that. We did get for 2 more grants. So we did the first documentary. We just wrapped up. We got 2 more grants, and one of them was they've done a second documentary, and this was with the younger kids, so from ages 8 to 12, and it was little kids, big voices
Oh,
talking. And I just saw last week the final cut, and they're talking about culture, they're talking about openness, they're talking about meeting other kids like them, what it's like. And so really the younger we can work with these kids, the much
the more
better.
I do.
And then the second project they did was called Adoption is Love. And when they're doing it, we have a mentee and a mentor. And so the mentee really wanted to collect artwork, digital photography, whatever. She wanted to showcase their talent because she felt growing up, and she's only 22, but she felt growing up, she was defined by adoption. And
Yeah.
so being able to exhibit other things that where they're creative and what they have will take away. And yes, this is me, I'm this, and I'm adopted, right? Not that I'm adopted and that's the whole focus. So
It doesn't, it's not who defines them. It's not what
no,
defines
they did this amazing job. So we just heard that we got two more grants. Um,
them.
and the one grant is, well, they're hoping that the two that are taking this on are hoping to do a podcast. And the other group, I'm so excited, they're putting together a book, and it is called How to Be an Adoptive Parent for Dummies.
Oh, I love it. Oh,
And
I love it.
so it's just like, I mean, people think, oh, like it's virtual, but in the real world, these kids wouldn't have, like that first documentary, the kids were, one wasn't, and I say kids, but they're young adults, right? Because there'll always be kids. One lives in London, one in Kitchener, the other one in Cornwall. They would never have met in the real world. And
Exactly.
those three are so connected now. It's just amazing, right? And so not only like are we there to help support people on this journey from pre-adoption to post, it's also to give voices to kids. We have kids that have spoken on panels. They talked about openness. We just had three that talked in our education month about what they want the professionals to know. I just get so excited because every time they want to share, they're doing this to really to help the next kids that are coming
Yeah.
up, right? And in a world where we've done so much work, I think our kids still will feel the stigma and
Yes.
still feel, less than. And so empowering them with their voice and connecting them to other people and people valuing what they're hearing
Exactly.
is so important to me. And I'm so excited. With them, we've done a number of panels. And so what we've created, we have an online learning hub as well. Some
Yeah.
of our courses are free. Some there is a charge. I encourage you to go on and look at the website and see some of the stuff we have. But we
It's
are,
fantastic content.
yeah, thank you for that, Mary. We're
It
just,
is.
and some are free. Like there is the
Yep.
7 core issues. That one is free. I would
Yep.
encourage anybody who's never heard of them before to go on and look at it. And it's extensive. Like it's not just
Yeah.
like sitting there. That like you can't complete it all in one sitting. There's a
No,
lot.
you won't. You will
No,
not.
Kathy Soden, who looks after that, is also an adopted parent who is responsible for bringing the Pathways program in. Has done so much work because her, just like me, what do we wish we had before? And so
Yeah.
I'm really, proud that we're able to help families. And in my role, both with Never Too Late and the Adoption Council of Ontario, I'm also able to provide support, one-on-one support as a parent liaison. So I think sometimes when you can normalize people's experiences, parents, caregivers' experience, it really helps. There's
Oh, it's a
nothing,
game changer.
there's nothing anybody could tell me that would shock me because I've
Same here.
been through a lot of it myself. I mean, we've been in justice, we've been in addictions, we've been everywhere with my kids, and we're still there, right? And
It's all
so,
part of the journey.
right, and just like you, I don't have a degree. I'm not like a social worker. I just needed to figure out my kid, and that's it. And now, like I can say, after 27 years, My oldest son is in a relationship. Yeah, he goes up and down and he struggles, and but
Oh, well,
I get his brain, right? Like he when he's in survival brain, nothing's getting in. So I just kind of I gotta I said to somebody today, he's had 3 really good years where I wasn't the cause of all this problem. So I know we can get there again. It's just
yes, exactly.
yeah. And then he's got 2 kids. My middle son just got married, and my youngest son, him and his wife are expecting their third next month. And so those are
Oh,
the
goosebumps.
rewards of sticking through those tough times, right? Because we wanted a family, and it's not just what we've given them; they've given us so much. I truly
They've
believe
given you tenfold.
I'm a way better person because of my kids, because of the learning I had to do. And I joke, I joke and said, yeah, like we adopted 3 because hopefully one of them would take care of us at our old age. And I think there's a good possibility that they probably all would
Yeah.
be there to help us. So yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do at ACO and Never Too Late. I'm happy to put my email address in the
Please
chat.
do. I
And
was going to ask you to do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Sylvia, I think I think the reason why we all connect with you is, first of all, you're genuine. Second of all, you say it like it is. And we forgive others. We don't give ourselves the same grace many times. And I think just hearing that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's how we learn. We allow our kids to make mistakes, but sometimes we don't give ourselves that same grace. And I think in both organizations, you're giving both parties a voice.
well, Mary, I'm not here on my own, right? Like, you know
No,
what? I've
it's the
had some
team.
help. I've had and your words every time I see it on your email, the journey is so much better when we are not alone is so true. And that's as simple and as hard as it is. That's it.
Yes,
Just reaching out. Like I'm big about modeling for my kids, right?
me too.
So when you reach out, and your kids see that that's okay, that's just not it's okay, it's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been learning. I never once did we ever think of giving up. It was
No,
just like, what do we do?
no.
And I've had friends that have kids that they've given birth to that they can't just bring them back to the hospital where they got them and say, here, go stuff them back
They're yours
inside.
now.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no
So
returns, no refunds.
they've had to figure out how to do it. So yeah, and then like I said, like the greatest learning, right? Like I mean, learning about FASD, like took so much away of the blame that we were putting on our like, why can't he? What are we doing wrong?
Exactly.
And then, oh,
Exactly.
it's the brain. It's not the
Brain,
how do we
not the
give them
person, not
strategies,
the
right?
personality, it's not the character.
Yeah,
Yep,
and then thinking, oh my God, like we've been putting so much pressure on him. He can't handle all these directions, right? Like,
exactly.
okay, so take us and learning how to do that.
Oh, tremendous, just huge. So I want to share a couple of little things. Stacy shared that they were lucky enough to be able to adopt both of ours. Our son just turned 6 years, and we've had him since he was 5 months. Our daughter will be 4 the end of June, and we've had her since she was 17 days old and released from the hospital. Yeah, that's incredibly special. And we all have lots we can learn. And I love Murray sharing, life teaches you lessons that you can't learn in school.
You're right, Murray.
Isn't that the truth? What I'd love to do right now, if folks are comfortable, I'd like to welcome anyone who wants to turn on their camera, who has a question or a comment that you'd like to share. Now's your time. If you're not comfortable, that's okay. Pop it in the chat and let us know what you're thinking. Did anything that Sylvia shared tonight in wearing 2 hats, actually 3 hats, caregiver plus plus, what resonated? What nuggets did you get? Absolutely, Murray. Unmute yourself.
Oops. Oh, Zoom. Yeah. I just would like to. I met Sylvia and her former colleague Laura through the ACO about 3.5 years ago when we were deep, deep, deep in the weeds.
Hmm.
Um, things can get better. It takes a heck of a lot of work, and community is important. That is the one thing that isn't. There's not enough effort put into by CSs or whatever is into building community. Like when we were in the weeds, Adopt for Life Now Interwoven Connections got us involved with some community. We got some stuff with ACO as well. It can make all the difference in the world when you get connected. It's
Did
it
it change
it's
lives,
life
Murray?
changing.
Yeah.
It is literally life changing.
Yeah.
Like I'm now where I could not have imagined. Like you know,
Yeah, look
it's
where you are.
and there is so many things that I commented earlier, there's not enough support for when things get tough. We had to advocate hard. And again, it was the community of advocates that made a difference for us. Our son has been out of our home for 3.5 years, but we are still his legal guardians. It took a lot of fight with the children's aid. Again, the experts came along and said, and they said, well, there's no way you can co-parent. Why not? And we just didn't take no for an answer. We are definitely unicorns for having the level of support that we have got. But
But you're proof that it can happen, Murray.
yeah, yeah,
And Murray, tell me something. Would you be following your passion, you yourself, if you hadn't had those community connections supporting you through the journey?
definitely not.
No.
Definitely not. And I guess kind of for some context, um, I started to do a Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology just over 2 years ago. I'm actually in the midst, kind of the latter half of my practicum as a student therapist. Um, it is, it's a bit of a shift. My career has been as an accountant, so seems kind of weird to figure accountants and counselors, but I actually ran across somebody who was a actuary and had been taking the counselor training, which seems like an even harder switch.
Definitely. Definitely.
But
But Murray, I think one of the reasons why you've been able to find your passion is because of your community, right?
yeah,
It's healed your family.
yeah,
It's allowed you time to recover and heal and to continue to grow and to help you realize where you wanted to grow. And I applaud you massively. That is no easy task, and you have done it in a very short order. And I think, you're coming in to support a group of caregivers that they don't have. We don't have you, Murray, as a unicorn. Okay. We don't have counselors that have the same lived experiences as we do.
hmm yeah.
And that's huge, right? It's a big deal. So I'm glad that you did put your hand up and share tonight just how incredibly powerful the ACO programs are. They do make a difference in
hmm
everybody's lives. And really, it's a matter of reaching out, right, Sylvia?
It
hmm
is. And I mean, just what I hear too, Murray, is like not only not only living the dream, but then learning from that and being able to help other
Exactly.
people, right?
yeah.
It's
Well,
That
and
huge.
yeah,
there's
that's the beauty of this, I think. Like,
I
recognize
agree.
because I know
there are days.
I know you have a hard story as well, right?
Yeah,
Well, we
absolutely.
we had a case conference, basically I guess it kind of was an annual update. And we were talking about how much progress has been made in the last year. And then we hear, and then, oh, by the way, we have a little incident from a couple of weeks ago. But again, hearing about the little incident from a couple of weeks ago is nothing compared to what. And again, even talking about serious occurrences, it went from like 31 in the first year to like 28 the next year. But the intensity of the severity was like, we missed medication doses instead of multiple elopements or.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Big things that you can work through, you can manage, you can find a solution to, right? That are not so overwhelming and not so shock and awe.
Yeah. And I see another friend on here too who has been through a lot too. It's a lot. There's just so much that the community makes a difference. But when you go to Children's Aid and they say, "Oh, it can't be that bad, is it?" And then when I called them after a really bad incident, it's like, holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am so grateful that you were vulnerable tonight and shared, Murray, and I want you to know that we appreciate it. We really do. I want to jump into just a couple of comments.
Yep.
Victoria was kind enough to say she had to run to go help her teens, but very thankful for all of you guys who've gone before us on this road and all the work you've done to pave the way for us to help our little 7-year-old be successful. So thank you, Mary and Sylvia. Stacy, same thing. Thank you so much for being here, for helping me, for the support, the wisdom, and reminding me that we're all still learning and we will get through together. Wendy was kind enough to also share that someone was navigating a late in life autism diagnosis, and hearing the positive spin on being in a safe place to regress and revisit actually really helps her to reframe some of her own regression away from shame. That's a really, really valuable share. Thank you, Wendy. We have to move away from shame.
Mm-hmm.
It is about healing, and we all deserve to heal. And it doesn't matter what that looks like, right? That's a personal.
On that late in life autism, I've had a late in life ADHD diagnosis, and it's probably somewhat related to trauma, but I've seen a few pieces written recently by people who have gotten diagnoses in their late 30s, mid 50s. It's
game changing.
It makes sense. There's something that's like, what? When you get a label, some people don't like, there's been a time when people haven't liked labels of medication and stuff, but labels actually aren't bad. They help make sense of stuff, and they help you get access to supports.
Yes.
Instead of someone being labeled as weird, you can say, well, this is why I'm weird.
Weird is wonderful.
Yeah.
It all depends on how you look at it. And the same is true with a label. For some of us, it's helpful. For others of us, it's not. And you know what? That's okay. It is an individual choice and an individual's right to have that choice respected, right? Murray, I'm going to share this because it's very timely with what you've just shared about diagnoses. Wendy said, I like to tell people congrats. I hope that feels good.
Yes, good. Something people talk about normal too, and I've said to different times, people is normal's sitting on the dryer.
That's what I say. What is normal? I used to tell my son that all the time because he would say, I just want to be normal, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's
normal.
It is also a mathematical term meaning average, but.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's a mathematical term, right?
So I was going to add, because I know, Murray, like you took the Pathways training. Because we're virtual, Mary, we're able to do specialized ones. So, so we're able to, if you had enough parents that were interested in doing a Pathways, we could do one just for FASD families. It would be the same curriculum, but with a tweak more, more towards our participants, right?
And I've seen
I
they've
I like
offered
that.
with interwoven as well for AFCA or aggression toward family and
Yeah.
caregivers in child and adolescence.
Yeah.
That's something that many of us have lived with as well. That, to be for children's aid to, again, that's another thing, is dismissive. We're not making this stuff up. You
No.
can't make this stuff up.
No. That's the name of our new podcast, by the way.
Well, Marie,
Can I
I
collect
think
royalties on that?
I've heard of them. I have to say my experience with some of the workers that I know professionally and like my own experience, like I had some really great people.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that's been your experience. Maybe you're with the wrong agency. No, there are some really good ones out there that will fight and advocate. And I know things are tough, and some like I hear you. I hear you.
Each group, each agency has its own nuances, its
Yeah.
own
Mhm.
strengths, and its own deficits. And
Mhm.
all we can do as organizations supporting our loved ones and their families is to offer our support to those organizations. I'm actively doing that with several local agencies, and they're open. They want the information. They want to do better. I really, really love a couple of things that were just shared. Stacy said, normal to us is weird. Exactly, Stacy, 100%. And Karina was saying, I love it. You can't make this stuff up. I wish the system would believe that. Karina, sometimes we have to step away from the system and talk within our own communities, within a caregiver support group or a human support group. That's where you find your people. That's where I know personally I have learned so much more than from any article or course I took. Um, it's our communities. It's our communities that help us understand ourselves and our loved ones in the best possible way. Murray, thank you again for sharing everything that you did tonight. You're a valued member of my community and several others. And I know that there are several folks on the call tonight as well, that we're really excited to have Sylvia join us, and share the information and the stories along the way. I want to thank everybody. Sylvia, I'm so grateful for your time and your
Thank
wisdom.
you for having me.
And to the folks,
Ask my kids; they might not agree with you.
it's a matter of degrees, right?
Yeah.
All about a matter of degrees. To the folks that were able to take the time tonight to be on the call, I want to say thank you. It's sometimes really hard to give ourselves permission to take the time to attend and actively participate. So thank you, each and every one of you. This recording will be posted at a later date on our Harrison's Hope YouTube. So please take a view. Yep, thank you, Sylvia. So great to see you here.
Thanks, Evelyn. Nice to hear from you.
Yep. We are very grateful, Sylvia. The comments show it. Great discussion.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to everyone for coming. And like I said, happy to help support, navigate through the ACO or Never Too Late, whatever we can do. We are here to support you on this journey. And Mary, thank you for the opportunity. You are a real go-getter, and I am really honored to call you a friend and to be able to do this work alongside you. So you're doing some amazing work, and I'm so thrilled that Ward connected us together.
I am equally grateful. Thank you. Have a fabulous evening, everyone. And reach out. Don't be shy. Sylvia's given you her contact. Many of you know how to get a hold of me. So if you need anything from either of us, reach out. We are here. Thanks, Evelyn, and everyone else. Have an amazing evening.
Thank you.